Hello, Adab, Namaste. Welcome to India's Business Legends. Today we're meeting a serial entrepreneur, Joy Sharma, who started a company when he was as young as 24. In his second venture, he started the company with $500,000 of investment, and it's become a single-digit $1 million company. So let's go meet him and talk more about what his company is about. Hi, Joy.
Hi.
So how are you doing?
Very good.
You started your company from UAE.
Yes, that's correct. So I was working in the UAE for about 2 years. Before that, I was in the US, and in the UAE, when I left, that's where I incorporated the company, and that's where the headquarters are. So it's based out of a free zone in UAE. I think the way I set up the company, I tried to use whatever best geography I could for whatever best talent was required, right? So therefore we have this office in India, which is now 150 people here in Gurgaon, and all of our technology, innovation, operations, all happens out of here. So this is kind of the core engine now. And the UAE, we have a sales office. We're setting up a new entity in Saudi. We also have a language-specific office for Arabic language in Egypt.
And why and when did you decide to come back to India?
So I actually never wanted to leave India, right? I was one of those people who was very patriotic and felt that if I have talent, I want to use it here and do things that can then go to the rest of the world. Been fortunate enough that I'm doing that now. But in that journey, I felt like it was important to go and understand how the rest of the world works, right? And that was the journey that started in 2010 when I went for my MBA. Then I worked in the US in McKinsey as a consultant for about 3 years, where I was working across industries and functions. And then at that point, I was thinking of coming back to India, but there was also an opportunity to learn about how governments function. And that's when I moved with McKinsey to the Dubai office. And I worked with various ministries on national program design, policy design, and things like that. And I think when I felt like I had learned enough to be able to, build something that could be global, that's when I decided to move back to India in 2017.
Oh, and that is when you started Easy here.
That's correct. I mean, the first 6 months was just ideating and figuring out what we would do, how it would be different than everything else, what would be the innovation. And then by the end of 2017 is when we started going to market. I still remember December 2017 is when we got our first work assignment. And since then it's been growing.
So when you got the first work assignment, what was the feeling like? What was it about?
So when I initially started the company, the idea was to build a tech company, which was tech more on the front end, right? But because this is a B2B business and we deal with a lot of confidential information, it wasn't easy for clients to trust a brand new company. So what we then did is that we used all of the technology and innovation in the background and positioned ourselves as another company that is doing great work. Once we started getting traction with the clients, that's when we started bringing our technology to the forefront. And that's I think this is one of those things that happened because I was reacting to circumstances, but this is what I imagine they would call a pivot, right, in the typical startup lingo. So yeah, I was just reacting to market realities and what I wanted to build and trying to find a way forward.
Interesting. So the time when you were working for somebody else, they say that when you've got that entrepreneur instinct, no, you cannot work under somebody. How was that time? How did you deal with that?
So it was interesting because McKinsey is also not like a typical corporate environment where you have one boss, you're working with one team and kind of reporting. So McKinsey is a bit of a free market, right? You are a talented, capable person. You go there, you get along with some people, you work on a project. It lasts for a few weeks or few months. Then you go and work with some other people, experience some other things, learn and grow. So it's not very your typical corporate. That said, when I was back, when I did my first job back in 2004, that was as a hardware design engineer, and I realized that I would find it very tough. It just doesn't sit with my personality to be working with the same set of people throughout the year and not kind of going out there and exploring.
So, what does entrepreneurship really mean to you?
What does it mean to me? Oof. Uh, it's a roller coaster, right? And a lot of people say this, but this is one of those roller coasters where you go up, you go down, you do loops, and it's not just about the problem solving. I think what people fail to recognize is the emotional toll it takes, right? And not just on you, also on your family, people around you, friends. And it's also a very lonely journey, right? Because when you're an entrepreneur, if you have co-founders, great. But in my case, I did not. And I think just learning to deal with the fact that eventually everything has to be solved by me. Whatever cannot be done by other people, eventually I have to deal with it. And that I think all of the experience that I got before starting this business has helped me, right? Because I understand so many different functions, so many different aspects. I still remember it was the first or second anniversary of the company, and that time we were maybe 10-15 people, and they all wrote little notes for me. And one person actually wrote, I still don't know whether that was a compliment or that was a that was a tana, right? Where this person was like, if there was more than 24 hours in a day, Joy would do everything himself. And I think that's what it takes to build a company, is to really it's a little bit like cooking, right? Where every single piece, ingredient, how it falls into place, you have to kind of you have to really kind of build it. And this is not just about the product, this is about the business, the client relationships, the team, the culture, just building the organization which can then run independently of you, which is kind of where I am now. I think it just takes a lot of dedication. You can't be distracted. This becomes the single purpose of your existence.
So the notes said that if there were 24 hours, more than 24 hours, you would do everything. Do you think that's the right approach to business? Because you did change.
So the question is that the right approach to business, or is that the right approach to startups?
Okay.
Right? Because when early days, you have to be elbows deep in everything, right? Distribution of responsibilities is fine, but if the entrepreneur cannot tell how the different pieces fit together precisely, then they can't even guide the team. Right? So if I had not done the work that some of the associates in our delivery team are doing right now, I wouldn't be able to guide right now. I wouldn't be able to lead right now, because I wouldn't know what it takes to do that.
Also, you're bootstrapped.
Yes.
And you funded the company from your own savings, whatever you saved. And how did it work out?
So I have I'm a little atypical in the sense that I feel like till I don't have something really good, I don't feel comfortable going to the market or launching a product, or even doing a presentation in front of my own team. So the bar that I hold for myself is very high. And what that means is, if at an idea stage you're going to a VC, how confident are you really that this will work, right? So for me, I think that was the reason for saying that I will put in my money, I will take on the risk, and once I have something solid, then I'm comfortable, right? The funny thing, or the interesting, happy coincidence is that didn't have to go there, right? Because the business was profitable, and we were growing the way we were.
And you've built a business which is majorly you've got about 250 people on roll, but you've got 1,000 people as freelancers. Why and how does that work out?
So I would say that's the first innovation. So a lot of the services we provide are very spiky in nature, right? What that means is that the demand keeps changing like this. Now, to optimize for this kind of delivery, what you need is variable capacity, right? At the same time, you can't rely only on variable capacity, and therefore we have this mixed model, right? So I think of our operations as in concentric circles. There is the operations team, which we call SWAT. Their job is to interface with the client and be available for the client round the clock, right? At the drop of a hat. We have this thing called the 10-20-30 rule, right? Where within 10 minutes, round the clock, all year round, if a client sends us an email, they will respond within 10 minutes how much time it will take to get an assignment done, the budget, and ask for their approval. Within 20 minutes, we've identified the people who will work on that task round the clock, right? And within 30 minutes, the work starts. Now, this was unheard of in the space that we are in. So I would say that was the first innovation, right? Even when people think innovation, they always think about, technology and AI and all of this, but just purely operating model wise, to the extent that, after we started in 2017-18, by now there are probably 10 different companies who've copied this innovation and are giving us fierce competition, right? So I think that a lean operating model, because also it's B2B services, right? The way to stay profitable is to stay lean, right? And to continue innovating. So that I think was the reason for having this kind of a model. First we have kind of this operations team, then we have a quality team, right? The quality team are the people who basically understand every single service that we deliver, and there's 70 plus services now, right? So every single service that we deliver, they are the ones who interact with the client. They are the ones who have the knowledge of what is it that the client wants, right? Then the next layer is our captive experts, right? Who are basically, they could be design people, they could be language people, the developers, market researchers, all of these. And beyond that, then we have the variable capacity, right? So this is how the company is organized, and this is why we're able to stay lean. Our fixed costs stay under control, and we are able to, if you think about it differently, we have unlimited variable capacity, right? And this was kind of the thought at which the idea for Easy actually came to me. When I was a consultant, I used to face a lot of problems in getting these kind of things done, and I just always used to think, what if there was like an army of people that were just available, and whenever a requirement like this came, I would just send it and it gets done, right? It becomes hassle-free. So I think that was the thought with which Easy was conceptualized. And then this model, what we started with was, one or two services, but then now the model has expanded to 70 plus services, and I feel like this is a great delivery model for B2B services.
And you call yourself as the factory of software also.
Services factory.
Services factory. How does that work out?
So I think there's another, especially because we're talking to entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs, how you define yourself changes over time, right? Like for a lot of people, when they start thinking of the business, they start with the vision, mission, right? In our case, it was different. We started delivering high quality services, and from kind of initially doing translation as kind of the primary thing, then we started doing design, research, we do digital now. When I say digital, I mean technology and AI as services to our clients. So initially we were just translation, and then we became a suite of business services, right? That's how we started defining ourselves. Then we started defining ourselves as a capability center, because if you think about it, the question for our clients is, do I build this capability in-house, or do I just engage with an organization that can provide me these capabilities? Unfortunately, that word was taken over by this GCC, right, which is basically staffing companies, like Deal is kind of the biggest example. So the global capability centers, that word was kind of adopted. At the same time, our thinking also evolved, right? So services factory of the world is how now we kind of envision ourselves. What does that mean? If you think, so if you go back to 1905, right, when Henry Ford came up with the assembly line, I see the way we operate exactly like that, right? So earlier, what used to happen is that, let's say this is a car, right? The car would stay in one place, people would come, they would work on the car, they would do their part, they would go away, another set of team would come. And the cost at that time was, for a car, was like a few $1,000s, right? What Henry Ford did, he said, people are not going to move. I'm going to create something called an assembly line. And every person is going to be a specialist, right? So the person who's putting on the wheel is the expert on putting on the wheel, right? And this person stands here, and on the assembly line, the car comes, you do the assembly, then it moves forward to the next person who's doing the next task, the next person does the next task, and eventually there's quality control and the car goes out the door. This reduced the cost of producing a car significantly, like by multiple X, right? Not even just like percentage. And the other thing that happened is the life of the worker became a lot better. He was able to pay the workers much better, right? And so I see our work a little bit like that. Right? So B2B services also, if you think about it, what happens is there is a certain task, there is an SOP, there are steps that need to happen. Some happen in parallel, some happen sequentially. And it's exactly like that. So we have something called Easy Workspace, which is the backbone on which all of Easy works, right? So these 1,000 plus people who are working with us, plus the 250 people who are in-house, everyone works on Easy Workspace. An assignment comes, it's predefined how that delivery will happen. Every single person is doing their task, and they know precisely what they're supposed to do, right? The next person knows precisely what they're supposed to do, and there is quality control at every single stage. And what that has done for us is something very similar to what it did for the Ford Motor Company. I don't know if you're aware, but in the automotive industry, now they count failures in parts per million, right? And this is a journey that started at that time in 1905, where things would not work well, to now, and we are now already at 0.4% failure rate, right? And every year the targets keep getting tighter, but I know that, like, what are we going to say, 0.01%? Eventually we're also going to say parts per, I don't know, 1,000 or parts per 10,000. So that's the thinking behind services factory of the world, right? If you'll allow me, I'll also talk a little bit about what is the next evolution of this, right? So essentially, now in the factory, initially this worker was working with a hammer and a chisel, right? Or a mechanical wrench. Then what happened? They started mechanizing, right? They said, okay, now this stage, what you have is, here is a mechanized, like a drill machine or a milling machine or a lathe machine. Then there's computerized machines. What that does is it increased productivity, it increased quality, and the world essentially became a better place, right? The same way, for the work that we do, AI is going to be those machines, right? And I'm saying is going to be, but in several places that's already happening, right? So instead of, one example is on translation, because that's one of the services we started. If you try and calculate the efficiency gain, right? If a translator could translate 250 words an hour, now they're doing twice that much, because we've created assistive AI, right? With that assistive AI, the translator is able to focus on the high quality stuff, right? Instead of saying, okay, what will be the translation? He's thinking, how am I communicating the message, right? And that's what AI is going to do in this services factory, right? The other thing also is, when I say services factory of the world, so of the world part then talks about the fact that the people that are working on all of these single steps can be sitting anywhere in the world. Right. And the clients that are taking the services can also be sitting anywhere in the world. so that's what that's why service is factory of the world, right? And I feel like having landed on this, now it feels infinitely scalable, right? Because once you have the mechanics in place, once you've built the assembly line, so to say, right, and you've built the right controls, mechanisms, feedback loops, then you can deliver extremely high quality in something where for the last so many years there's a lot of subjectivity, right? So we've taken that down, we've standardized it, templatized it, digitized it, and now it works. It's starting to work like a machine.
I'm wondering if I can draw those parallels. Recently, Piyush Goyal, the minister, he had said how, the startup system in India is not focusing on the right places we should be. And with your enterprise focusing on building mechanisms, focusing on building systems like that, I'm wondering if you are already a step ahead in that direction.
So I will not comment on what he said. Everyone is creating value, otherwise they wouldn't exist. At the same time, I also feel that India as a country has some of the smartest brains in the world, right? So I would also at times feel a little bit frustrated that why are we not, building the next, I don't know, OpenAI, for instance, right? Why is that something that didn't come from here? There are obviously resource constraints, right? Like it takes a lot of money to build some of those things. But there's also a mindset, right? And I feel like I have again, I will go back to the exposure that I got in being part of the rest of the world and, really looking at businesses closely. I feel like that gave me the confidence that this can be done. Right? And some of the AI IP that we've built is actually even better than the big tech, right? So for instance, I was just talking about language translation. So for Arabic business language, we are the best in the world, hands down, right? Like a Microsoft, AWS, Google, if they're sitting at 30-35% accuracy, we are in kind of high 50s, low 60%, right? And we did this with the money that we made from the business that we were doing. I think the one thing I didn't do is take home all of the profits. Instead, we invested that and into core research, right? And it's tricky because again, if you go to a VC with this idea, they will fund you, but 3 months later they'll be like growth. It has taken us 4 years of really understanding the engineering behind creating this IP, right? And that patience, the way the VC world is structured is not there in whatever, and I don't know this in too much depth, right? But whatever people that I've interacted with, there is this urgency for return, right? So, patient capital can only come from places where there is a lot of money to spare and people are aligned on that kind of big vision. So that's why we invested our own money. We built this. Now we're seeing the benefits of it. It's made us more competitive. And hopefully now the idea would be to become an industry leader and also provide these technologies for others to use, right? Because I think that's what innovation is about. You make something good and then you make everyone better, right? Not just yourself.
And we were also talking about AI and how AI innovation is required and will be the norm in days to come. I want you to explain in layman term whether AI is actually a friend or whether it's going to cut down jobs, because this is one question which is always there at the back of everybody's mind.
Yeah. This is a tricky one, right? So essentially, there is this saying that I really like, right? Which is basically that we always overestimate what's going to happen in the short term and underestimate what's going to happen in the long term. Okay. This is also going to be true for AI, and I'm seeing this, right? I think people are really worried that everyone will lose their jobs tomorrow, and what will happen. At the same, and especially with AI, where the pace of change is so fast, right? The growth has happened really, really fast. Yes, it will happen, but it's not like half the people are going to become jobless tomorrow. That's not going to happen, right? At the same time, it is now very tough Like usually, if you talk to any business leader, they would have a 5 to 10 year view of what the world will look like.
Right.
Now, if you ask me what the world will look like in 3 years, it's tough, right, to answer that question given the number and pace of change. I think so if you're an entrepreneur, I would see that as the most amazing opportunity of your lifetime, right? Like they're saying that AI is an even bigger disruptor than the internet was, right? And it's not like the internet made the world a worse place. It made the world a better place. The same is going to happen with AI. That's my belief, right? The question is, how smart are you to find the opportunities and to ride that wave, right? This is, I think, for everyone who's either entering the workforce or in the workforce right now, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. These kind of things happen once in a lifetime, right? So I think the way to look at it is as an opportunity and not as a threat. If you're working and you have certain jobs which you know that are going to be affected by AI, I mean, it's quite apparent, right?
Yeah.
Which ones are going to get affected. Then make AI your assistant. And you will do better than the people who are, not using AI or who are too rigid to change. And I think while, everyone has kind of this slightly sarcastic tone when they talk about Gen Z, I actually think that the younger folks are a lot more agile, and that's going to play to their benefit, right? Because they're not stuck to doing things in a certain way. They're going to be more agile and adopt and understand this technology much better than I do, right? So that I think is a great opportunity. I think we should shed fear, and they say na dar ke aage jeet hai. So I think we need to all embrace AI. That's something that in our CEO town hall for the last 3 years we've been saying, that we want to embrace AI. We don't just want to leverage it. Let's embrace it, right? The world is changing. It's becoming a different place. Let's get on top of that. So I think that's the mindset shift that is required, rather than kind of worrying and being fearful.
And I think it is because of this mindset that the entire vibe of your office is very young. It's very peppy. The moment you walk in, you get that vibe, okay? We're not entering a very set corporate kind of an office, but it's got a very peppy vibe to it.
So this is by design. As I was saying, right, like as an entrepreneur, you have to design the product or service, then you have to design the business around it, and then you have to design the organization. And a big part of designing the organization is the culture. So one of the challenges that we faced initially was when we were a small team, 10-15 people, the culture was set by just those people, and I was interacting with everyone. As we started reaching the 40-50 people type stage, what happened is that we also had a lot of people coming in from the regular existing service industry. Now the mindset there is different than what we were trying to build, right? Because when you're talking about working in minutes, right, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, versus giving timelines of days and weeks and hours. Like I'll give you an example. If you talk about creating animation videos, right? If you talk to any regular agency, they come back with a 2 to 3 week timeline. We deliver in 2 to 3 days. Matter of fact, we showcased one particular case study in our CEO town hall where we actually delivered an animation video of 2 minutes overnight.
And how did that happen?
We just this is the operating model that we've built, right? People are available, they know exactly what they're supposed to do, each step was followed, technology was used where it could be used, and because the client was basically, I know I'm coming late to you, but we have a meeting tomorrow, or day after. Actually they said we have a meeting day after, but tomorrow I have to show it to my leadership so that the video can actually be played in our event day after. So we just we all rolled up our sleeves and we said, let's make this happen, right? So that so I think now when you're trying to recruit people from a different culture, it takes a lot of unlearning before you before the learning happens, right? So therefore, our preference is always to go with smart, intelligent young people who, as I said, are also more agile and are eager to grow, eager to learn new way of doing things. And it's not like we don't have experienced people. Experience has its own set of value, right? That the organization requires. So I think keeping that balance was important. And when I was talking about the culture, then once we crossed the 70, 80, 100 people type range, then what happened is that became the culture of the company, right? Because when the new people were coming in, they were just looking at how things are done and they would adopt and move on, right? So I think, so it's a journey, but you have to know what you want to build. And I was very, very rigid about the fact that we cannot become like a traditional, typical service provider, because the clients we're working with are some of the top organizations in the world. These are the strategy offices of MNCs. These are the top consulting firms in the world. We're working with a bunch of government entities, and this just like you need to be able to. So the thing I tell my team is that for them, for our clients, it should feel like we're an extension of their team. Their problem is our problem, right? We're one team. And I think that's how we think. That's how we work with our clients. We don't work like a vendor, right? There are so many times where they'll say that, hey, we're stuck. Can you do this for us, right? And we'll just do something ad hoc, right? It doesn't matter because making them successful makes us successful, right? So that mindset, I think, is the reason that we tried to build a culture, and it was challenging because I'll give you examples, right? Where, let's say, so this is, as you walked in, you said, great vibe, very peppy, but it also comes with a lot of responsibility, right? We don't have a culture where someone is breathing down your neck all the time. This is your task. You're supposed to do it, own it, deliver it, right? And whatever quality that you deliver is your bar of quality, right? If that is low, then that's who you are, right? And I think that once you are able to effectively communicate that, then people start taking pride in their work, right? And they're like, no, if I am doing this, this has to be really good, right? And everyone is pushing each other to be better. But it's risky because, when you're saying that you're going to have a young person interact directly with a client who's like a top executive in an MNC, there is risk there, right? So we've also built mechanisms to make sure that things don't fail, but at the same time, that's the kind of opportunity and exposure that we give to people so that they grow quickly, right? And I think that's this whole growth mindset, whether it's me, whether it's this organization, whether it's someone who's an associate, a director, a team leader, all of them are of that mindset.
So when you were setting up the company, did you even envision that this is where you're going to reach, or you're still short on target?
But I knew that I didn't want to do things the way that they were being done.
So give us an example of something that you turned absolutely heads on.
Digital marketing was happening in our organization a little bit.
It's actually the human brain only which is working, but it's using AI
As a
efficiently,
tool.
like you said.
As a tool.
Thank you so much for the time that you gave us.